Thanks, Nani. Thank you, Andrea and Hindia and the group as well. So I'm pretty sure I'm on the first slide. So yes, with the pandemic is still very well active, and I guess maybe the following content or discussion will focus maybe from, let's go back to maybe December. I think December is a big turning point in terms of the boosters becoming widely available, 18 plus, and it was also the start of our 5 to 11-year-old campaign. And then, of course, Omicron was just kind of taking a grip of the scene. So I guess the risk is that we continue to see a discrepancy, some great progress, of course, across the city. But here, and I'll let you know, I'll be going through this a bit quickly just because we have an ambitious agenda and I want to make space for our colleagues on the team. And I know this is available on the ONS. It's presented a bit differently here, but we'll also make it available so that you can share via email. But essentially, if we look at here, this is a comparison of our quintile 1 and quintile 5 neighborhoods. So our quintile 5 neighborhoods being our neighborhoods that face more material deprivation, obstacles, and of course, we know that a number of our newcomers do live in these neighborhoods. So in particular comparison of the orange bar being the third dose, the booster, and we can see a discrepancy there. And then here, if we look again, quintile 1 versus quintile 5 on the extremities, in particular looking here at the green bar, where we see the discrepancy for our little ones. So our 5 to 11-year-olds, roughly a 31% discrepancy. And of course, all of these can be broken down by neighborhood. These are averages of quintile 1, quintile 5, and continues to confirm that our communities that face barriers, our communities that are newcomers, that have faced inequities previously and continue to face inequities, are still lagging behind any vaccine campaign. But if we look at this one, it seems that community effort, and by community effort we mean all the great partners on the ground and our collective, does have an impact. The jump you see, so this is a bit of a comparison, or not a comparison of, it's the disparity. And what we have seen and what we've linked this to, this jump in disparity, usually that's, if you look at the dates, whenever a new category opened up, for example, when the boosters were widely accessible and there was a use or a heavy use of the provincial booking system, we automatically saw a big discrepancy because we know that our communities have barriers booking that way. Appointments were filling up quickly. So with a lot of work and kind of trying different things and door to door and making hubs and trying to protect those hubs, we're able to kind of see a decrease in the community, or our communities are able to kind of catch up. Again, I apologize for whisking through this, but I want to get to like the efforts that are out there and our hopes for community. So we've shifted a lot of our work to clinic support during the months of December and January, in particular because our hubs, which some of you know, our hubs were created specifically for our communities, were being tapped out. We were seeing that people who have means and are quite better off financially and socially were making use of those hubs because the booking system was full. So we had to be creative, had to get into the hubs and try to help our community be prioritized there. We continued our door-to-door efforts, and then online engagement took a kind of a new turn. We worked closely with Andrea and her team to really target newcomers. So working with Briere, it's an amazing partner, and they did a lot of the heavy lifting in preparing those presentations. We were able to try to meet clients where they were. So rather than creating online presentations, we were trying to piggyback existing programming. Again, thanks to the partnership through LASI, through Briere, we were able to really go to ESL courses online or whatnot and really deliver those presentations and really giving value to those smaller group presentations. Regardless, we weren't trying to make 200 or 300 people town halls. We know who that reaches. We were trying to go really where our communities are not getting the message and the support, and offer those in a variety of languages. Testing took a new change as well, as you know, and with PCR testing discontinuing, a shift to the RATs, so the rapid antigen tests, was particularly challenging for our communities. The access to RATs was difficult, knowing even the messaging, and so we had to work a lot internally with OPH to make that messaging of when and how to use RATs was also not straightforward or always clear to community in terms of being symptomatic or asymptomatic, and how to conduct those, and then how to act upon those results, and when to isolate and how to isolate, and what does that look like for people in crowded housing and with multiple and competing priorities. And then, of course, through our community of practice, we kept the finger on the pulse and really tried to kind of read the change in the community. And what we heard from our partners on the ground and our community is a lot of exhaustion, which is really, and it's been obviously exhausting throughout the pandemic, but in particular during the months of December, January, and February, in terms of not knowing where we're going with this. And then, of course, the change in mandates has kind of, quote unquote, removed a bit of an impetus to get a vaccine. So it's a bit of a new challenge. It's a new climate for us to work in. And so we're kind of trying to be mindful of that as well. And so we're at a stage where we're also trying to say, well, how can we work in community to not be so pressing with vaccine, and to be a bit more responsive to people's realities and their feelings and how they feel right now. Of course, as some of you mentioned, the occupation downtown had a dreadful impact on us, on our ability to actually support people in accessing some of those areas, because we do have a lot of high priority needs in that area, but also the impact in terms of racist and hateful speech on staff and our community. And so we don't do our work in isolation of that reality, and so that had some impacts, of course, on our work. So I will pass it on to some of our team who will speak a bit more in detail. Start with Sarah, who will speak to our pod work, and then we'll go through there. And if time permits, I will speak a bit on OPH's recovery intentions. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Kareem, and thank you everyone so much for giving us the time to speak with you today. So my name is Sarah, and my partner Heidi and I work in the Arab Pod, which has a focus on both Arab and newcomer immigrant and refugee communities. And Heidi also leads a newcomer engagement strategy that meets bi-weekly with different settlement organizations across Ottawa. So the scope of our work encompasses various communication strategies, on-the-ground community outreach, and community-informed initiatives addressing different health and social concerns, along with barriers to accessing services. So some of our communication strategies include our Arabic WhatsApp line, which has also now just been expanded to include both English and Arabic broadcast lists to encompass more newcomers to be able to access those tools and resources. We have a Facebook group for Arabic speakers and readers with almost 500 members now. And we also do different media interviews. So for example, Heidi went on Chin 97.9 for their Arabic portion to speak to the work that the community engagement team does. We also do on-the-ground outreach. So that includes business outreach in Arab-owned shops and restaurants. We go door to door. And an example of this is we did extensive outreach in the Donald Towers in the East End, where there's a huge newcomer population along with an Arab population, and we were able to mobilize a vaccine clinic there, well, actually multiple vaccine clinics, and we also provide language support at other clinics, and we also support newcomer clinics at hotels and the Sophia Reception House. And finally, we have the community-informed initiatives. So our community-informed initiatives include the newcomer engagement strategy, our health series, which I'll speak a little bit more to in just a moment, presentations, town halls, and different events addressing health concerns from feedback that we hear from our partners and our stakeholders and our resident leaders. So the newcomer health series is essentially just, we designed a series to address health concerns most prominent in the Arab and newcomer communities. So this series included guest speakers such as doctors from across Ontario, health navigators, and social workers who work very closely with these communities, so Arab and newcomer communities. This playlist is also available on YouTube, on the OPH official YouTube page, and we currently have hundreds of views. So it was really great to see that our community was able to access this. And I will now pass it over to my colleague, Erica. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for the invitation. My colleague Luke and I work with the ACB Caribbean Black communities with a special focus on ACB Francophones. So we work in providing culturally appropriate and accessible information by offering and making accessible multilingual town halls, joining pre-existing groups. We work on increasing access and rapid turnaround of evidence-based information through OPH, and we continue to use mediums of communication used by ACB communities, some of them WhatsApp that Sarah just mentioned. We also have been able to adapt some of our strategies thanks to the input and feedback we gathered from the ACB community members. Last year, using both a focus group and a short survey approach, we gathered voices of ACB community members and leaders documenting feedback, experience, challenges in accessing COVID vaccines, information and sources, and also finding out what are the trusted sources of information about COVID-19 from prevention to whether or not deciding to get vaccinated. Amongst the 199 surveys collected from 4 random high priority neighborhoods in Ottawa, 72% of the respondents were identifying themselves as ACB members. And for the focus group, we had 8 participants from 7 countries of origins. Both the surveys and focus group voiced similar feedback and recommendations. Some of common barriers that we also know, and we have the report accessible that we can share, but mostly some of the recommendations were using culture appropriate and accessible information, in-person community engagement, informed and rapid turnaround of information on testing guidelines and so on, using local radio stations, neighborhood clinics, mandated community leaders, affiliate leaders to speak more on vaccinations, leveraging on community events, using language, resource, and information, and staff tailored to each communities. So the need for multilingual resources, information shared on cultural specific platforms used by ACB members, and also context regarding COVID-19 cases and vaccination rates that does not stigmatize ACB communities were some of the mentioned recommendations. This year, a small but growing ACB advisory committee with 8 partners meeting once a month was formed by Luke and I. In January, we spoke about strategies to decrease the spread of COVID-19, Omicron in the ACB community, and what communities are seeing and experiences in the current wave. They suggested involving ACB people who are leaders to take lead on sharing messages, clarifying messaging on vaccine doesn't mean you cannot get COVID, importance of talking about vaccine hesitancy, using visual messages as well, concern on long-term side effects and vaccine ingredients were still present, how vaccine were portrayed at the beginning as a complete cure, and what the current message was. What they saw as well was a long wait and postponed of care and making other comorbidities severe, and a notice of increase of depression, mental health issues, and anxiety.
My colleague Zainab and I have been facilitating dialogues and presentations and workshops with the Somali community. So we're taking a population approach to provide equity-focused services and bridge gaps in knowledge and communication and build relationships between the OPH and community. So we've been engaging different groups within the Somali community, which includes parents, youth, and religious leaders and health professionals as well. We also have the Somali Advisory Board that we meet bi-weekly. Another major component of our work is that we're gathering data that addresses key issues and key social issues that the community is facing, and we're developing need assessments and tools that will inform a community recovery plan. So what we've been hearing from the community in terms of recovery is that there's a lot of support needed with employment and working conditions, housing, and education. We have created a community-informed strategy that assesses needs and improves understanding of barriers and builds capacity for community-based planning and response. So with that, we have parent group sessions. We've created a feedback form. There's also social media engagement. A lot of the media apps that we use is WhatsApp. That's very well known within the Somali community. We also have town hall meetings that we try to hold every other month, and engaging faith leaders who play a significant role in the Somali community. Lastly, we're mapping resources for community demands and system navigation. So with our community engagement strategies that center to lift the voices of the community and address the health inequities. Through that, we offer outreach and clinic support, and also gathering feedback to assess the impact of multilingual materials and key issues to inform a recovery plan. And lastly, just collaborating with community partners on various initiatives and community events to have a wider impact for the community.
Thanks. I guess we'll forego this and hopefully at a later time speak a bit about recovery. But just to let everyone know, we're exploring our collaborations and our conversations in the community to start that, and by no way suggesting the pandemic is over, or that our communities are ready to move on. There's still, of course, a danger around around COVID case count in our neighborhoods and communities for sure, but wanting to explore a collaborative approach, including community voice in co-designing recovery with communities. So we'll speak about that at a later time. Thanks, everyone.